This video is just gonna be nice and simple. I kinda need that after the month I've had. So I know it's been a while, but hey, I'm back now, and this time I wanted to reuse an old video idea from 2021, where I compared the Owl House to Little Witch Academia. That old video from mid-July of 2021 was super long and covered the two respective series as a whole, as well as their main characters, but this time I'm zooming in on Luz and Akko specifically. And I know I've already talked about Luz and the Owl House a few times before on YouTube, so I already know rent steal from talking about it again. Don't worry, this time it'll come with a twist, I promise. Potential spoiler warning for both Little Witch Academia and the Owl House, and without further ado, let's get this gravy train moving. Akko is pretty similar to Luz in a lot of ways. They both go to witch school, they both are hyperactive, they both have mentor figures that have people in their lives that they became estranged from, they both don't fit in, and they both have their own respective found families. They both have to find a way to get better at magic since they struggle with it at first. And they're both probably the most memeable characters I've ever seen. And they're both at the top of my kin list. Now with any character analysis, you need to start with, well, a character. And this is done via characterization, which is the creation or construction of a fictional character. Right off the bat, we can see Akko's personality from the OVA. She's excitable, impulsive, determined, and competitive. But she also has a hidden sadness, both at her inability to fit in and her ineptitude with magic. She's also kind of a weirdo, which I can relate to. Not just the endearing type of weirdo, but I also mean the type of weirdo where you consult a tiny alpaca for advice. So, Muhammad, what do you think about Little Witch Academia? Thinking about it? Thinking long and hard? What do you think about Ako Kagari? Good talk. Look, for all of May, I've been away from social media, working my first ever paid job, applying for classes for community college in the fall, and Muhammad's been there for all of it, so as far as I'm concerned, he's basically my best friend now. Yes, I know he's a tiny rubber alpaca, but I don't care. But getting back on track, for as much as I relate to Luz, I relate to Akko just as much. In school, I was always the weird kid, the guy who was inept at some things but was good at others. And I also had to find my own found family both online and in real life. I already touched on that in this video from GeekTunes, so check it out if you haven't already. But one thing I do want to touch on that I've hardly seen anybody else talk about is how Akko has something to prove. She has to prove to Diana and those goons she rolls with that she deserves to be there and is indeed capable of magic. She has to prove to Lotte and Susie that she deserves to even be around them, as she sometimes feels inadequate due to her inability to perform magic like they can. She has to prove it to her teachers that she can indeed excel academically, and she has to prove it to herself that she can indeed move on after being lied to and let down by her idol. But with Lotte and Susie as well as Amanda, Konstaz, and Jasminka, she realizes that she doesn't have to, but that's easier said than done. When you've lived constantly on go mode 24/7 having to prove yourself to survive in a cutthroat environment, it can be hard to let your hair down and just chill. And it can be hard to actually take the time needed to process things that happen to you while you're in said go mode. This is something that I can relate to a lot, as being in between two siblings that need a lot of attention, especially as a boy in the family, and a middle child, I had to figure out a lot of things on my own, and deal with really deep things at a relatively young age. We're not even gonna mention how I had to play marriage counselor to a dysfunctional couple in their mid to late 20s on Discord when I was 14 in 2020. Seriously, what is it with adults dumping their problems onto kids on the internet? Anyway, the fact that I had to deal with such things for so long on my own, I grew up with the mindset that I had to do everything on my own forever, and that even when I ideally should be taking a bit of time to recover from something that happened, I just had to keep on chugging due to my life circumstances. And this is something present with both Akko and Luz, but to different degrees. All three of us were basically telling ourselves to put the fries in the bag, but hey, at least those two turned out fine. One final thing I'll say about Akko that I relate to and that she shares in common with Luz is the feeling of feeling like you don't belong. Not just because of the weird kid factor, but also because of the fact that they were both away from their loved ones in their journeys, and had to basically navigate a foreign environment alone. And throughout the past year of 2024, and even now in 2025, there's been 4 instances wherein I've had to do just that, and often in times of intense upheaval in my personal life. And just like Akko, I had to work with what I had, and find my way with the help of those closest to me. And Luz did the same thing, but I'm not here to talk about Luz in this video. They are. Take it away, Oliver.
Hello Swamp Stars, the stars of the swamp. It's Oliver with 2 R's. I'm not where I usually am. This is not my house. I'm here to talk about one of my favorite modern cartoons of all time, The Owl House. The Owl House is amazing television with one of the best character writing I've ever experienced. No, this is not biased in any way. Please watch the show. But I'm here to touch on the main character, Luz. Luz is a character I can in some aspects relate to. Her insane love for her friends, her interests, and of course, her weirdness.
I like editing anime clips to music and reading fantasy books with convoluted backstories. Oh, happy dagger, give me death!
When we get introduced to her, she's a social outcast, but she isn't ashamed of it. She's proud of her weirdness and wears her heart on her sleeve. By the way, when I say weird, I don't mean like edgy teenagers call you the hard R weird, not like anime Twitter weird. I hate y'all. I mean like harmless weird, like cringy fanfic reading Tumblr users weird. Side note, but seeing people react to normal fandom behavior is like hilarious every single time. This guy was mad that people were making ship art of characters.
This has to stop and I need your help. This is My Hero Academia and that's Deku and that's his homie Bakugo. They're both straight and they're just the homie. But as you can see here, this is not homie behavior.
Like, aw, baby's first fandom. Experiencing Luz progress as a character throughout the show is so good. It's just good. The pacing and the callbacks that indicate that Luz learns from her mistakes, the impact that she has on other characters, and the impact her environment and its circumstances have on her. We watch Luz encourage people to follow their hearts and fight for what's right. We see her mature as a character, and by the beginning of season 3, she doesn't come across as the same happy-go-lucky girl we first saw wander through the portal door. Luz makes decisions at the expense of herself, but for the good of the people around her, and even punishes herself for the problems she created. She sacrifices her happiness for this grim sense of justice towards herself. Like she got off easy, but she's still the same caring person from season 1, just in a more darker circumstance. She's the same kid that got sent to the principal's office, the same Azura fangirl. I want to see that fan fiction. And the same creative mind that doesn't fit into any boxes. The only difference now is that she saved the world. And the whole time, all she really needed was for someone to understand her.
Stop what you're doing and subscribe to them right now. He makes funny and informative videos. Also, I knew I wasn't the only one that wanted to see the fanfiction. But one more thing I want to talk about concerning both Akko and Luz is how despite magic not being something native to them as they both come from non-magical backgrounds, they still found a way to make it their own and carve out places for themselves. I had to do the same in a lot of aspects of my life, from YouTube to school to language, faith, photography, filmmaking, and more. And I want to say to those watching this video that even though it may be hard to get good at something that seems almost insurmountably hard to grasp, even though it may be hard to find your tribe, even though it may be hard to stop looking at everything as an opportunity to prove yourself to others and to yourself, even though it may be hard feeling like you don't belong anywhere, and even though it may be hard to get your bearings in an unfamiliar environment and to grasp something that you weren't quote-unquote lucky enough to be born with an affinity for, it's okay. Just take your time and try your best. Trying is winning, even if you don't think it is. And sometimes the people that help you realize that are already there. Just take a deep breath, smile, and look around and realize that you're not alone. That you are trying, and that little by little you'll find your way to belong, and your own way to gain mastery over your craft. Little by little, you'll come into your own.
Huh? I know the reason why you wanted to become a witch. It was because you saw Shiny Chariot's magic and she cast a spell on you when you were little, right? That's why I think you should have this.
I know this breaks up the flow of the video after such a sentimental message and montage, but I just launched a Ko-Fi that has both one-time and tiered options, and it'd mean a lot if you guys would support me there, cause things kinda need to be paid for. So yeah, link in the description. All that's left to say now is to stand Ramona flowers from Scott Pilgrim and drink some water. Bye for now.